So just like Hannibal before me, I crossed the Alps and came out victorious. So I ran the Cross du Mont Blanc, aka the 23-kilometer du Mont Blanc, at the Marathon du Mont Blanc series of races in Chamonix, France, 3 weekends ago, and I'm just reporting back now. I was on vacation for 3 weeks and I just didn't have time to record this review video until now, so apologize for the delay, but getting to it now. I'm also working on my GoPro footage. So long and short of it is I survived the race. It went about as well as I could have expected. I finished in the top half, which I consider a major victory considering where I live in Michigan. We don't have mountains, we don't even have big hills really that I can train on, and obviously the elevation is something I can't replicate here either. So when you factor in jet lag and everything else, and like I said, I came out in the top like 45% or something like that, so pretty happy with that. It's a little frustrating. I wish I could train in those conditions more often because I'm normally much more of a high-end finisher than you know, shooting for like a 50% finish, but it's just hard when you can't replicate those conditions to train in. So like I said, everything went pretty well. I guess I'll go through kind of some of the surprises and things like that. The race course in general was more technical than I was expecting. I think Sage Canaday, who came in 8th overall, he ran the Marathon du Mont Blanc, and he commented that it was much more technical than he was expecting as well, or than he remembered. And I can definitely vouch for that as well. I thought there were places on this trail where I was like, if I was just hiking here, I would just turn around rather than keep going, because it was pretty ridiculous in spots. The downhills were really technical and difficult. That was actually the part where I was most amazed. For the most part, no one was passing me. I started kind of towards the rear so that I would always be able to work my way up. And for the most part, people weren't passing me, but I got to this one part where it was an aggressive downhill, and I felt reckless going as fast as I was going. Like, I mean, one little misstep and you're gonna tumble and kill yourself, you know. So, and there were people passing me, and I was just like, I don't know how you people are doing this, you know. Maybe it's a little bit with my height and center of gravity, I was a little more unstable than shorter people or something. I don't know what, or maybe they're just that much more experienced than me or whatever. But that was definitely something that made a big impact on me. Just like running up and down, and there's rocks and you know, tree roots, and the ground was very uneven, and you're having to make like leaps, and there was parts where you had to hold on to metal railings and stuff like that. So it was definitely pretty intense. I tried to think even while I was running, like comparing it to Pikes Peak, which I also ran, and they're really kind of like apples and oranges. I don't think I can really say one is easier than the other. I finished the Cross du Mont Blanc faster than I finished Pikes Peak, despite it being a longer race. So in that regard, I guess you could say that it was a little easier, in quotes. But I really think they're very different races. Pikes Peak, it's pretty, the trail itself, you know, isn't very overly technical. It's just a constant uphill, you know, they call it a death march up there at altitude, and you know, the big challenge there is basically the altitude and the incline. You know, the whole time you're going up and the whole time you're getting higher and higher in altitude, it's hard to breathe, your heart's beating out of your chest. So they're different challenges, whereas this race finished, I think, at a lower altitude than Pikes Peak even starts at. So the altitude, for me at least, I didn't really notice it very much at all. That wasn't really a problem, but definitely the trails were, you know, very tricky. Another big thing is it was just awesome scenery. Like, I got a GoPro footage. I'm going to be posting it here on my video. I'm going to edit it together and get it into a single video, but I'm also posting each one individually to show kind of some of the scenery. It was really, really incredible. Surreal, I would say it was surreal. And unfortunately my GoPro the batteries died about halfway through the race, so I didn't get to record all of it. In retrospect, I wasn't turning it off in between recording sessions. I was just turning recording on and off, and it ran out of batteries. So that was a lesson learned for that long of a race, that I'll have to turn it off. It was a head-mounted camera, so I was a little concerned about trying to fiddle with it and turn it off and on and record, all while I'm trying to run up a mountain, So I was hoping I could get by without having to turn it off, but lesson learned there. But I hopefully got some good footage of the early miles. Other than that, like I said, it went pretty well. There were 2 stops, so that's something to know. If you're going to run this race, it's basically, they call it semi-autonomous race, meaning you have to be able to support yourself. You should bring enough water with you. You should bring food if you're going to need food. I used some little Gatorade chewables, and then just made use of those 2 stops along the way. But just know that there aren't water stops every mile or 2 like there used to maybe in a marathon or something like that. They're very few and far between. So you got to be prepared for that. The weather was pretty good. It was a little warm. I was a little unsure really how to dress and stuff like that, because I wasn't sure at that high of altitude, the difference in temperature. I'm not familiar with the area, etc., but ended up being pretty much fine. I wore shorts and a t-shirt. I wore this t-shirt actually for the race, and I was actually a little too warm in the early stages. I think it was 70-80 degrees, and at the lower altitudes that's obviously pretty warm. I think it cooled off as we got a little bit higher, but it wasn't sweltering, and it wasn't, we didn't get any rain or anything like that. So all in all, pretty reasonable weather and conditions. Other than that, I'm trying to think what else to say. I started at the rear of the field because I really didn't want to get in the way of serious runners, mountain runners, people who knew what they were doing. And my other motivation on that was just to make sure that there were going to be people ahead of me. I had seen the 80K du Mont Blanc on Friday night, and these people were just running up the road, and I didn't see any indication telling them where they were supposed to go, and somehow they knew where to go. So then I got really worried, am I supposed to know this course by heart so I don't make a wrong turn? So I wanted to start at the back, so I had a ton of people in front of me, and didn't have to worry. I could just follow the crowd, not have to worry about am I supposed to go left here or right. The trail was marked pretty well. There were, things tied to trees and stuff like that. So for the most part, you really couldn't get lost. There were a few spots probably, if you weren't in a crowd, that might have been a little confusing, but really that was a lot of worry on my part for nothing. So if I were going to rerun it today, I would start probably another 50% closer to the front, because the first couple miles I was sort of wedged in with really slow runners, and I just couldn't get by them basically. But maybe that worked out to my advantage by being that much slower in the beginning, and I saved that energy for the end. Had plenty of energy at the end. I was able to get a final sprint up the final hill to the finish line, and I picked off another runner right at the finish line, so that was a good feeling. It was really obviously hard to pace for this. I had no idea what to do. I obviously tried to be conservative given everything, given the jet lag and, not knowing the terrain, etc., etc., etc. Races like this, for me especially, it's only my second, real mountain race. So they're really hard to pace, It's really hard to know how much to put in reserve, how hard you should be going at a certain spot, and all that kind of stuff. So that's definitely a challenge. I probably could have done better, if I was going to run it again. Another big, 2 big things I think that factored in, although all considered, I think I did pretty well. The jet lag, it was like 6-hour difference. I lost 6 hours when I flew east there. And then the night before I got there on a Thursday, the race was on a Saturday. And then Friday night, like I said, was the 80K race. And it went right by my hotel, which was really cool because I could watch those guys running and, you know, cheer for them out my balcony and stuff like that. But my hotel didn't have any AC, so the only way I could really sleep at night was to open my balcony, and these 80K runners were running through the night, and, you know, so every 5 minutes it was "Allez, allez, allez," people clapping, and I basically didn't sleep the night before the race. Got maybe an hour, 2 hours at most of sleep that night, so that was really less than ideal. But I didn't really notice it while I was running that I felt really fatigued or anything like that. I got through it and really felt it went about as well as I could have hoped. The final area there where you finish is really cool. It's got beautiful views. One thing I noticed with my Garmin was, like, I went a mile further. It's supposed to be a 23K. According to my Garmin, I ran more like 25K. So that's something to be aware of if you're going to be doing one of these races. Your Garmin may read differently than the race is supposed to be. I was expecting the finish line to be at like 14.2 miles. And when I was getting close and I didn't see the finish line anywhere in sight, I was like, uh-oh, you know? I was like, what's going on here? So that was, you know, kind of a funny thing, but I made it, and I didn't, you know, I wasn't totally dead by the time I got there. My legs were actually, again, kind of like when I did Pikes Peak, relatively strong. I actually ran 22 miles the next day because I'm in marathon training, and that's pretty ridiculous to run a, you know, mountain race like that with over a mile vertical ascent and then run a 22 miler the next day. So my legs weren't real tired, but again, it was just overall awesome environment. It's so cool to be there with, you know, other people running these races. I had the American flag on my chest, so you know, observers could, you know, speak to me in English, and they actually started a USA chant for me at one point. So that was really cool, and it was cool to see all the different runners. I saw a woman from Brazil, I saw a guy from Brazil, and, you know, all the different countries. It's pretty incredible to see. So yeah, overall it was just a really cool experience, like a once in a lifetime kind of experience. And I'm now debating whether to go back next year and maybe try to do the full marathon. Honestly, not sure if I'm capable of it or not. So maybe I'll do the cross again and just try to do better than I did this year, but I'm sort of starting to just think about that. It depends on a lot of things, how the rest of this year goes with my running and goals and things like that, but I'm starting to toss that around because it was a really cool experience, and I'd love to get to do it again. So and then I got a real cool, you know, I spent several days there. I got to go up in the mountains. I went over to Italy. I crossed the glacier, did a lot of sightseeing and stuff like that. And then I went to Sweden for 2 weeks and visited Sweden. So I had a really extended vacation. It was really awesome, and just a really cool experience. So I think I'll wrap that up here. Again, if you have any questions or comments about the race, feel free to comment below. Subscribe if you like this content. Like I said, I'm going to make a highlight video of my GoPro footage and get that out there. I'm also uploading the little segments just individually as well to get them out there faster for anyone who wants to see those. So I'm running a half marathon this upcoming weekend, and then I got my goal marathon here coming up in about 6.5 weeks in Marquette, Michigan, and I'm hoping to go for my BQ there. So I'm really, you know, anxious and excited about that and nervous about that. My confidence isn't real high. My training, I tried to run as much as I could on my vacation, but I was also trying to do as much sightseeing as I could. So, you know, that was a little bit of a struggle. So I'm not quite sure where my fitness is right now, what speed I'm capable of, but I'm hoping to get a good read with a half marathon this weekend. And so I'll be doing a preview for that. I still got a shoe review coming out. So subscribe, like I said. I'm a little backed up here with my videos, getting my videos out because of my vacation, but I'll be getting a few out here in short order. So Thanks for watching, and I'll be back with more content soon.